updates for you, and then I'll have Adrian Walker come up and share some updates ahead of the Palafox Project getting started, website up, and all of that stuff. Share that with you and take any questions that you may have. First, we have selected 3 finalists for the police chief position, and they are Brian Dugan, the retired chief of police for the city of Tampa Police Department, Eric Goss, the acting deputy police chief for PPD, and Eric Winstrom, who's the current police chief in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So those are our 3 finalists. The candidates will participate in a public forum on at 5:30, January 13th at the Sanger. That we will be able to have an avenue to be able to take some citizen questions ahead of that meeting. So we'll get more details and get that information out about how citizens will be able to submit questions for that. And the link will be posted on the city website and the social media channels. And then we'll also live stream the final panel interviews, likely in this room, but somewhere at City Hall on the morning of the 14th. So there'll be a public forum on the evening of the 13th, and then there will be the individual interviews with the interview panel the morning of the 14th. So that is when the activity will take place for is January 13th, January 14th. We'll get you exact times and all of that stuff as we get closer, but that's the general format of how this will go. So those 2 days, on the 13th, there'll also be some internal, in the building type of interviews, conversations as well. So the 3 candidates, 3 finalists will be here basically all day on the 13th, going around the city to PPD and other locations, as well as the formal interview on the 14th. So we will get an exact timeline to you, but we just wanted those 3 finalists have been notified, and that is we want to get the public forum information out as quickly as possible. So for everyone's schedule, January 13th, 5:30. Happy to take your questions on that and answer the best that we can. You saw the announcement, of course, bringing Shannon Dickinson on for in our strategic communications position and promoting Tanya Bird to Parks and Rec Director. We're certainly excited to have both of them on board. And I know we'll do a great job in their respective roles. So obviously Tanya, being an internal candidate, has already taken the reins there and taking on those projects. And then Shannon will start on January 5th. The recycling update, we added another 100 recycling customers with some of our digital campaigns going out. So we're up to 3,892. We continue to track at the 93% clean rate. And we will start with some of those. You guys remember, we talked about contamination warnings that our trucks would have the capability to give those. We'll start with those likely sometime in mid-January. There hasn't been any that have gone out as we've made sure that the technology is working correctly and all of that. So mid to late January, we'll get you an exact date when we get a little bit closer when folks can start to get the friendly tap on the shoulder that perhaps their recycling was contaminated. Portland Loos, the one at the skate park was installed on Friday. This past Friday, it is out there now. I think there might be, I drove by, I think there's still some kind of site cleanup happening in and around, but it is down. It is on the ground and the water and sewer connections were completed by ECUA. You guys may recall, certainly we appreciate their partnership. That one of our hindrances of why it has taken as long as it has was the immense cost. If you recall, it was going to be something like $600,000. I forget it, going off memory. To be able to put a couple of them in, we were able to get that down significantly thanks to the partnership with ECUA, helping us with what a big chunk of that cost was, which was the sewer connection. So we appreciate their support and partnership. And then the Portland Loop at MLK Plaza will be installed this coming Monday. So if you drive by there, you see the fence around it. The pad's already been poured, but you'll see that will go in on Monday. The Christmas closures and sanitation changes. Offices and facilities will be closed Thursday the 25th, Friday the 26th, Christmas. The big change for sanitation services would be folks that normally get Thursday, we'll actually get it tomorrow. So it'll jump a day ahead. Monday, Tuesday, Friday services are all as normal. So if you get recycling or garbage Monday, Tuesday, Friday, nothing changes. If you get it Thursday, you will actually get picked up tomorrow. With the Children's Trust, I had 2 meetings, both Friday and Monday. Very productive meetings, just getting on the same page about the direction that we want to present to CRA, and how we calculate what those numbers are. We're finalizing that now, and in what direction we want to go in terms of child care access. Both as mentioned, Rick asked about it a couple weeks ago. Our 2 biggest priorities are going to be facility service, FF&E related. How do we stand up more facilities that have more inventory? And then the second part would be some ability to credit, incentivize retention. It probably will not be to the same degree on an app like it is it's down in Miami-Dade. We certainly would like to get there at some point, but we do think that there can be maybe some smaller steps that we can take in place. That can take place with bonuses and retention bonuses, things like that for specific child care. We also believe that we'll be able to offer fixtures, things like cribs, things like the things that go into a daycare center to help make it pencil for someone, because we know how difficult that is. So very productive conversations. I think our intent now would be to get this both to the trust board and to the CRA and council in February. So right now we're working out final details between Teresa and Lindsay to make sure that they have things to present to their board, and certainly that we have things to present to CRA and council. But I think all things are trending in the right direction, and we'll be able to get a very important partnership up and going. And then the last thing I've got is some updates on New Palafox. If Adrian wants to come up and share exactly where we are here a couple weeks ahead of the start.
Thank you, Mayor. As you know, we're moving closer to the New Palafox Project, which will commence on January 5th, 2026. We've been diligently working on getting all the plans in place, also working on a robust marketing plan. So we have a few important dates leading up to that January 5th commencement. The first being that on or by January 2nd, all furniture in the street right-of-way needs to be removed. That includes tables, chairs, movable planters, anything that we would consider within the outdoor seating arrangement. Those need to be removed from right-of-way by January 2nd. We are sending out certified letters today. I'm going to do some hand delivering of letters today to talk with business owners, make sure they understand that. And that is so we can maintain code compliance and the need for a 6-foot pedestrian pathway during the construction project. Also, starting January 4th, we are going to put out some signage on Palafox, reminding people that the road will be closing starting at 6 a.m. on January 5th. So we will have some signage out, making sure people know that they need to get their vehicles removed from Palafox, preferably by 8 o'clock the night of the 4th. Otherwise, cars will be towed at their expense. So we want to over communicate that and do everything we can to make sure that we're not having to tow any vehicles on the start date. Like I said, it'll start January 5th. They'll start to mobilize. You'll see work underway. We'll have the construction fence going up. We have very nice designed fence banners that will include wayfinding information for all the different businesses. We'll also include project information, some historic photographs, some of the renderings. So we worked very hard to make something aesthetically pleasing to be in a construction zone. In terms of marketing, we launched our new website. It's at www.thenewpalafox.com. That launched late yesterday. That is going to be the hub for all construction related information. It will be regularly updated. It has a construction timeline. It has details about any closures or anything that people need to know at the immediate. It also has some great promotional opportunity for all the businesses. So you can go on there and see every single restaurant or retail commerce location and then link directly to their website. It'll also link directly to the Downtown Improvement Board so that you can see events happening, any kind of special promotions that businesses are running. So that website will be regularly updated as things change. We have some collateral developed. We have a wrap card that we'll be distributing to all the hotels and chambers, Visit Pensacola and all those types of places. We're going to add space at the airport. Trying to do everything we can to make sure that visitors know that Palafox is open for business. The sidewalks and storefronts will all remain open throughout construction, and it's just Palafox Street itself that is closed. I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. That's pretty much what we have in a nutshell as of now.
All right, on the parking, the free parking, have we decided if it's going to be open, free for an entire period, or will be some time limit allowed for the free parking?
We have 412 free parking spaces. We are still working out the exact time of how long they will be available. We've had a lot of feedback. Some people are in favor of 24-hour, which does leave you open to people parking there and staying there for an extended period of time and not getting that turnover that's needed for people who are briefly stopping in. We've also had feedback about limiting it to 2-hour, 3-hour, 4-hour, but then you run the risk of having to enforce, and we would rather not write tickets right now. So we are still making a decision on the best course. We're trying to take in any input that we get.
Okay, so we got 20 days.
Well, I'll add, I mean, my position right now by default is to make it 24-hour because that we asked the business owners. I promised the business owners when we met with them during these meetings, we said, I'm not emotional about it either way. We'll do it either way you like it. I do think there's going to be pitfalls with both. And I think it's something that we probably need to assess even during, it might be a scenario where we start it. My hunch would be we're going to start it as 24-hour. And if it becomes a serial problem, then maybe we adjust certain number of spaces, we can adjust from there. I know that Councilwoman Patton has some hesitation about the free. I do too. I understand her hesitation because the whole idea is, and again, I think we have data that can prove it, that I think something like the average transaction when it was 50 cents an hour on Palafox Street was about 220 minutes. When it went to $1 an hour, it's about 140 minutes, something like that. Significant change, which is what you want. You want churn. That's what we've always said. And obviously 24-hour free is not going to provide you the churn. But what I hope is that the sheer volume, the 412 spaces, maybe if that's enough for everybody, then maybe the 24-hour could work. So that would be my hunch, barring something, some new information coming in. I think we'll probably start it as 24-hour. And if we just see that it's not sustainable or it's not having the impact that everybody wants, then we'll adjust from there. Anything else on Palafox before we let Adrian off the hook? Okay. That is everything that I've got, and I'm happy to take your questions.
I wanted to ask about the SS United States. While it's a Okaloosa project, I'm sure it'll bring Pensacola visitors as an attraction as well. There's the New York councilwoman that's still pushing for the project to stop. I just wanted to know your thoughts about it and if you'd like to still see it happen.
Yeah, I haven't followed this stuff outside of the area closely, so bear with me on that. But what I would tell you is certainly I think it's an asset for us. And I actually think the way that it's been handled, this kind of we'll put some money in and move it a little bit closer to our thing is really the best case scenario, I believe. I think it's a smart investment. It doesn't mean that the city, the county, the region has to take it on all of itself. What we know from this type of tourism is people are willing to travel. The expectation is not that something of this size is going to be a mile offshore, right? And so it's going to take some travel to get there. So inching closer to us, I think, is a very good thing. And I think it can have a big impact for us. So I'm encouraged by it and everything that we can do to make this a more attractive place to come visit, come stay the night, come support our small business. And I think it's a great thing.
Mayor, on the police chief search, can you kind of just talk about the process leading up to the selection of the 3 final candidates and like how many like qualified candidates were there that was narrowed down to this?
Yeah, I mean,
around
what I can say, I don't have the exact number of vetted applicants. So I'm going to say somewhere in the 80 range. but I want that to be verified. I don't want to mislead you on that. But I guess I can just speak to it as we were certainly encouraged by the quality of candidate, and there was difficult decisions I think internally in terms of cutting to a smaller number and a smaller number. There were a couple other additional semifinalists that had some interviews, and that's how we got to 3. So, but I can say, this was a very talented group of folks. Even some of the folks that didn't make that first cut certainly were qualified, and that's what you always want with any of these jobs that are open. Is you want a talented pool of people that you feel like can do the job, and I think there's several people. Even outside these 3 that would have been qualified to do the job, but I think that's a testament to the 3 that are the finalists that they stood out above and beyond the rest. So I'm looking forward to the conversation. I'm looking forward to seeing how the community reacts and what their feedback is as it pertains to who they think is the best lead to the most important thing that we have, which is public safety. So it's an important decision, and that's why this one's going to be a little different than your standard department head. It should be that way, because whoever's in this job has an obligation not only to keep everybody safe, but to be out there and communicating and having a relationship with our entire community. And so that this job is a little different in that way, and so that's why I think some of these front-facing things will be important. And that this isn't just a decision that happens inside this building; it's a decision that in many ways impacts us entirely.
I guess, can you talk about, was there like a selection committee, or was it like you going through it with senior staff, or were there?
Yeah, it's just been internal to this.
Were there like already previous rounds of interviews by this point, or?
There were semifinalist interviews. So I think maybe 5 total. So that down to 3. So that's what you have in front of you. But yeah, to get to where we are today, that's been an internal process.
And then I guess ultimately it's your decision to make the hire. What are you looking for?
Well, it's a combination of things. Obviously, experience is important. Familiarity with the community is important. I think a track record of the change was made under the idea of having good employee engagement, and so I think having a track record of employee engagement of what have you done, and whether it's at a previous place externally or with an internal candidate internally, I think that's going to be important. Because if that's why we made the change last time, then we certainly are going to be, you can imagine, emphasizing the morale and employee engagement when it comes to this time around. So there's lots of factors, and every candidate for every job is unique. It brings different strengths, and so again, I'm looking forward to the ability to have lots of conversation and hear from these candidates, and I'm just encouraged in the fact that we've got 3 really, really strong candidates right now, and excited for the process to play out.
Mayor, could you kind of talk about the expectation of how the Sanger Theater event will work, and then the live panel? Who's asking the questions at the live panel? What are the expectations for the Sanger Theater event?
Yes, so it'll probably be in the smaller room at the Sanger. Just to be clear, from a venue standpoint, it'll be in that kind of side room, not the full theater. But I think the expectation is we wanted the citizens to have an opportunity. It doesn't have to just be questions that the mayor thinks of, or that David Stafford thinks of, or any of our other folks. We wanted the opportunity for these folks to have to answer questions that our community cares about. And so obviously with these types of things, it becomes a little difficult to organize where you just have an open mic.
Right.
We want to be able to streamline the process. There's a certain amount of time. We want to make sure there's fairness of who's getting asked questions first. So there's some obviously moderation that'll be taking place. And I think as of now, it would be Ted Kircher that could change in terms of who's actually doing kind of the moderating. But the hope is to get lots of questions, find what those common questions are from the community, and then they have an opportunity to hear those questions or answered.
And then the panel, who's I guess they're on the panel, but who's asking the questions in the panel? Is that the council? Is that?
Sorry, so for the evening event, it will be the 3 finalists.
But the next day, I'm talking about
Yes.
the next day.
So the next day will be a 6-person, I believe, is what we finalized, 6-person panel. Very similar to the last, so I'm not on that panel. I mean, obviously, I'm going to be here listening to the questions, but those will be individual. So it'll be 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock with individuals.
Okay.
So there will not be a rotation in that interview. There will be at the center. That will be all 3 of them. And then I'm sure we'll rotate who answers the question first, or something like that. That'll be how it will be moderated. We obviously haven't worked out every one of those details yet, but
In each one of those discussions, those panels, so each candidate comes in individually, will be asked by the same panel,
that's correct.
interviewed by them, and those will all be filmed.
That's correct.
Straight.
Yeah.
And then one more question. Then when do you expect to make your decision after this?
I don't know that we're like putting a day on it, but certainly, we got folks who are in other positions in other places. I mean,
Right.
what I can safely say to you now is as quickly as reasonable. I mean, if there would be no reason for us to act following that event, there'd be really no reason for us to delay. It's a top priority for us. I couldn't tell you it'd be 24 hours later, but
And then it still goes before the council for approval.
the standard department director approval, yes,
Right.
yes. And we are looking for ways to be able. Obviously, it's difficult with sunshine. But we're looking for ways throughout the January 13th day where these candidates will be going around to the police department and other ways. We're trying to figure out a way to incorporate likely the council executive or council president, something like that. We certainly want to at least allow a touch point with council members. Can't do it with all 7. That would be a little too difficult, but we're going to find some happy medium to make sure that the council has the ability, or at least a representative of council would have some ability to meet these folks as they go.
The long-awaited drag show, Christmas drag show, is happening tonight. Do you anticipate any protest, or is there an increased level of security downtown?
We don't. We plan for a secure event, and certainly our police department is aware of the optics and the public conversation around it. And we'll be ready to go. That's what we can tell you.
Mayor, on the Children's Trust meetings, what with the dueling, with the dueling legal positions, did those meetings sort of find the middle? I mean, what is the expected outcome of this collaboration at this point?
Yeah, well, let's speak generally. There's legal positions and practical positions, right? And that's with whether it's Joe Patty's, whether it's Children's Trust. There's legal positions of which we feel confident in our legal position. But I think the hope is, for the sake of the children of this community, for the city, for the trust, is to find some level ground and some collaborative way to move forward. I feel very confident that we've found it. And so that makes legal positions move. And I don't think taking a legal position against the trust or vice versa helps this community. And we're not here to prove a point. We're here to bring positive outcomes to the children that live inside the city limits. So that's what we're working on. And again, I feel very confident after these 2 meetings, probably 3 hours of conversation about this. I can certainly, I can speak maybe on this side of the legal argument, but the perception I got is that I think both legal representation of the trust and legal representation of the city agree that the best thing to do is to find a collaboration. And again, there's lots of people that vote on these things that certainly I don't have a say in, that Lindsay doesn't have a say in. So there's still work to do, right? The trust is going to be presented an idea. The CRA is going to be presented an idea. So there's only so much we can do right now, but I can say confidently, I think we found a path forward. And again, we'll get those final dollar amount details to you and all that as we get all that paperwork that we kind of promised each other during these meetings all inked up and ready
Yeah,
to go.
so where does that leave Alice Williams and the request for proposals?
Yeah, so Alice Williams is moving ahead regardless. I believe January 6th is
Oh, who's nickel?
well, right now it's the CRA of the cities, because we weren't going to paralyze a project that was, understand Alice Williams already has received, as you know, grant funding significantly. I think Alice Williams received grant money before I was there. So, we've been working on Alice Williams long enough, regardless of what it is. So what we were not going to do is paralyze another 6 months just waiting on I believe it was high hundred thousands of a change order that needed to take place that's already gone to
In the
council.
facility, right?
Right, correct. So there's no hindrance on that front. Now, moving ahead, potential other facilities, whether it be in Brownsville, another one around Baptist Hospital, wherever the case may be, we want to continue to expand that same effort. Alice Williams is unique because we had already had such significant renovation funding taking place. It wasn't like we were starting from scratch where we would have needed a significant amount of money. Also, typically, trust dollars don't support infrastructure and things like that. It's usually services or fixtures, things like that. Not that we couldn't have requested that, but what I've said from the beginning is I think the most collaborative approach is for the CRA to want to increase childcare access and do it in a way that still meets the definition and spirit of the trust dollars, not get into debate on whether they're CRA dollars or their trust. Let's just find a solution that checks the boxes for what a normal trust request would be. I think the county has a perfect example with the summer workforce program. I mean, that was something that provides a service that helps supplement something that's important for our community, and it meets the trust definition, no matter who the applicant was. But it's something that was important and impactful. So again, I feel good about where we're at. We'll have more final details in the coming weeks, exact dollar amounts, all that kind of stuff. But we just want to make sure we let the ink dry on our side. We're still doing some calculations on our side about what that exact number will be. But again, I feel like we're in a very good place, and what I expect the city to come back with is something that will meet the same definitions that the trust wants to meet, and it'd be something that ends up being a great partnership with the city.
Mayor, last week at the Tourist Development Committee, Michael Capps, ASM Global, gave them a brief on where they are with this January 22nd presentation to the commissioners, the package, the plan. And one thing caught my attention was that they said that the preferred option, and he showed some little bit of leg here, but he said the preferred option was going to be build out of the 9th Avenue parking lot with amenities and supporting facilities. And he said specifically, his consultants recommended they had to have, if you're going to have a meeting space, you have to have a hotel there. And that sort of intersects with what you've been talking about,
Yeah.
the Grand Hotel. He said they were now collaborating with the city on all of that. Can you give us an update on where you're thinking? Is it the same as it was? Is there something new thinking here?
Yeah, I think
How that would work.
right now, I think our reports early to mid-February is when we'll have our report back, which again talked about some of the peripheral things that would happen, whether it's parking, whether it's hotels. And again, my number one goal of the city study is, one, to make sure that other things are paid attention to, like traffic, like everything else that would happen with a larger facility. We shouldn't or cannot expect that ASM, that's not their wheelhouse. Their wheelhouse would be what's happening on that inside that property line, not necessarily what happens outside the property line. So that spirit and that goal hasn't changed. That's what we want to make sure that the study comes back with. But it also, the goal number 2 is to have that ability to go to public-private partnership and say, hey, this is what we got. This is what we have as a community in bond dollars. This is what we're willing to spend. Those are all things we've got to decide, right? The county and the city. But that's why, to me, having that second study is important, is the leverageability of information that then makes it a higher chance of success that we can get investment and not be just limited to whatever bond dollars we believe as a region we want to put towards the project. So I hope between the ASM study and certainly this one, that we're going to be able to put our best foot forward and say, okay, well, if you want to build a hotel here or a parking garage here or a meeting space and you're in the private market, is that something that becomes more likely or less expensive to the taxpayer because we provided them with the correct amount of information. So that process hasn't changed. We're certainly collaborative with them, and again, I'm looking forward to seeing that total conversation, and which obviously means, I think that'll really ramp up in the spring. Conversations with the county and see which way we want to go from there.
We got a couple other questions from the newsroom. There's been talk about a rail service coming to the city. Where do we stand on that? Still a potential?
Yeah, obviously, it's something I would love to see. I mean, certainly it's encouraging to see the numbers that are coming out from New Orleans to Mobile. I think the ridership, from what I've read, has been pretty strong. So I think that probably makes as good a case for us as any. There are clear challenges. One is just the sheer amount of funding that it takes and to build it. I know that there's the interest. Certainly, there always is. It's why even when I just had a phone call a couple weeks ago from a local business that might asked about the train station, and my position has always been, I'd like to put something in there and activate the space, but we are not going to give away the ability in case train service came back. We're not going to lease it for 20 years or for 30 years or anything where we would now limit ourselves or force ourselves to have to build a new facility. So I still kind of hold out that hope, but it's billions of dollars that certainly the city doesn't have. I mean, we're going to have to kind of wait to be prompted by Amtrak or the federal government to get moving. And the Southern Rail Commission, we're very familiar with all of their efforts, and we speak to them intermittently, and they know that philosophically we're right there with them if there's anything that we can do. But it's been a while, but just to refresh on one of the key challenges, just to give some color to why it's just not as simple as saying pull the rail from Mobile to Pensacola is the current rail goes from Mobile to Atmore back down to Pensacola. You could run a train at 55 miles an hour on that route. That would probably take 2.5 hours to get to Mobile. Well, it's a 50-minute drive. So the value proposition to get to New Orleans and things like that for it to take 7 hours, I don't know, is the same that Mobile has because they don't have that hurdle. So what do you have to do? Well, the billions of dollars comes in when you have to modernize the signalization that would have to take place going into Cantonment, up to Atmore, back around Mobile Bay and down, because the only way it becomes feasible is if that train can be moving at 75 miles an hour or 80 miles an hour, where now you're only talking about maybe a 40-minute difference between driving and taking the train. So I do know Amtrak's reached out or is inquiring about potential bus service. That was a conversation I had with them directly a little while back with if there was enough Pensacolians that wanted to take the train over to New Orleans from Mobile, then you could connect with some type of bus service that's pretty popular in the kind of Midwest area. There's a lot of that Amtrak does, not so much obviously down here. So we're at the ready to help in any way that we can. But I think there's some significant financial hurdles that make it certainly not a shoe-in. But I think there's lots of folks in this community. FDOT, every conversation I've had with them, they're certainly open to it. But I think everybody wants to know what's the price tag. And that's not something that's going to be afforded by the city budget. There's going to have to be some real stepping up from the federal government to make that happen. But we're ready. Anytime anybody wants to have a conversation about moving further east, and we're ready to have this conversation anytime.
So do you already have a lot of people you feel that are driving up to Mobile and getting to New Orleans? Or?
I don't know. It'd be interesting. I have not seen that. Again, the fact that Amtrak would inquire about that tells me I'm sure that they have their demographics or where their billing zip codes are, who's buying tickets. So perhaps I don't know. How if that would be successful or not. I would leave it to that's their business, right? They know where they would need a bus or where they wouldn't. But if it's something that they feel like has enough steam, to make sense, then we would be happy to work with them or figure out where the bus will pick up or drop off, all those different things. We're happy to have any conversation that makes train service more convenient or a bigger reality for us. There's just not, we really can't be driving, I would say driving this train, but no pun intended. We can't really be driving this. This is going to have to be driven at the Southern Rail Commission or federal level, but given the sheer cost that we're talking about that it would take to make this happen.
And then one last one for me, an update on the Veterans Park bathrooms. I saw somewhere they might be delayed.
Yeah, well, so there's a budget delta, and it's just a matter of meeting with the MP. We were crystal clear with them. Couldn't be more clear with them that we would put this out for an RFP with the hope that it would get in budget, and if it didn't, then we would have decisions to make. So any perception that wasn't, Captain Kinsella had that conversation directly with them. Any perception that we said we would make up a delta, or that if this was going to be $300,000 over with $250,000 over, that we wouldn't have difficult decisions to make. We couldn't have been more clear many months ago on that. But if there's something we can provide, again, Port of Blues makes sense. If there's something we can do, we want to see that happen. This conversation's been going on for, I think, 10 or 12 years now. As you can imagine, we certainly take issue with that. We've been a hindrance. I think the only 3 years of the last 12 where there's been any conversation about progress has been these last 3 years. So any suggestion that we are the ones blocking the door for this to happen, I think all we've done is put up time, money, bandwidth, move different locations. We try to be as nimble as we can to provide this. We do think it's important. We want our veterans to be able to enjoy it, to be able to have a facility there. I think it's important. It just may not be in the form that has been visioned over these last 12 years. We might just have to make some more difficult decisions about exactly what form it comes in. Anything else? All right. Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you so much.